Welcome, everyone, to another fantastic episode of Double Booked. Tonight's guest is a writer unafraid to explore the darkest corners of humanity and ask the hard questions about redemption. He's the mind behind Everfront, When the King Was Born, and his newest release, There Will Be Thousand, which is a brutal yet deeply human tale of a bandit turned slave forced to confront the lives he once destroyed. His stories balance grim choices with moral qualities, reminding us that even in the shadows, there might be light. Please welcome the great, the powerful Alexander Robb. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing good. I'm feeling a little nervous with that introduction. I hope I can live up to it.
You're going to kill it. You're going to kill it. So I'm really happy, man. I've been looking for this conversation for months. I feel like we've been, we had something planned and us talking back and forth for a few months. I do want to give you the floor to go through and start us off with giving us a little bit of an elevator pitch of There Will Be Thousands.
Awesome. This one is super simple. It's my favorite book that I've written because of how simple the elevator pitch is. It's a bandit slaver is sold into slavery himself, and he has to work alongside the slaves that he once sold. And that's it.
So. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I had so much fun with it. The elements, we'll go through and we'll talk a little bit more. I don't want to get too giddy about it now, but we have some awesome people that jumped on. We have Mr. Bunboy. He said, I think I saw up here, he's been on for a minute, and he also said he's your brother, and he's happy to see you.
He is, yeah. Thanks for being on. His name is Ethan. So thanks, Ethan. I appreciate it.
We have the great J.A. Bryden. How you doing, my friend? And then we have the powerful Ro. Ro is a rock star. He's the man. Cannot wait to go through and jump into some of his story. Oh, we have another fantastic E.O. Montague. How's it going, buddy? Look who's there. All right. So, Alex, I'm curious. You've written multiple books. What drew you into storytelling?
Yeah. So I have always loved reading and writing. But the moment that I wanted to become a storyteller, there's a book series called Silverwing by Kenneth Opel or Opel. I'm not sure how to say his name. But it's a trilogy of books about about a bat, essentially. It's for children. But at the end of that trilogy, something happens to the main character and evoked a pretty strong emotional response from me where I started crying. And I told my mom about it, and she kind of didn't know how to deal with me crying about this character in this book. Something terrible happened to him. But that was the moment where I decided I wanted to write so that I could invoke those same feelings in other people. And I've written on and off the majority of my life. But for the past 7-8 years, I've written every single day trying to improve my craft, essentially. So that's kind of my journey of getting into writing.
Wow, that's awesome. Have you always been a fantasy as your genre of choice for writing, or did you go through an experiment in other genres?
I actually like writing in a ton of genres. I've got a romance that I'm working on right now that I may or may not publish within the next 2 or 3 years. Fantasy, sci-fi, horror. It's a bucket list item of me to have a bestseller in every genre except for like erotica or smut. But we will see if I'm able to hit that, or if I'm able to hit a bestseller at all. Yeah, that's those are kind of fantasy is my bread and butter, but I love writing in a lot of different genres.
Why not smut? You don't want to add that to your belt?
I just I don't like reading it. I don't like seeing the covers. Like, if you read it, that's fine. Like, good for you. I don't think I would feel very comfortable writing that.
I hear you. I feel like that could be once you get a bestseller and all the other ones, like, I got to go with it. I got to give it a try. Got to swing for the fences.
Yep. With my luck, none of my other stuff would sell, and the one time I try my hand at erotica, it would be like my best-selling book, and then I would be stuck writing erotica. My wife would be like, "Make that money, please."
That's so funny. That would be my luck. It's like, whatever. I'm gonna do a funny, and it's like, oh, that's now your genre forever. That's so funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Oh man. So I saw. Okay, I need to know what's the thick red book. I don't know who you're talking about, man. Right shoulder.
I think it's you on your. It's going to be on your left, top shelf. So looking the other way.
Is it this
Go
one?
right.
Is that what you're talking about? This red book? Yeah, let me know. Is it Godblind or is it Swan Song or The Hidden Treasures? I don't know. I got a few red books. You let me know what you're talking about. Oh no, he's talking about you. What's that thick red book behind you? Or is that a board game?
That is actually a board game. That is Settlers of Catan.
Unfortunately,
I keep all of my books in my wife and I's bedroom. We don't have a room for a bookshelf right now, so they are in the closet. And she hates it because they take up the entire top shelf.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah, I used to before I moved out here, I used to keep everything in the closet. So it's like you walk into the closet and like there's a small place for clothes and the rest was just like books everywhere. And she's like, you got to get these out of here. I'm tired of looking at these every single day. So what led us to this nonsense that I ended up putting together.
Exact same thing for me. She actually made me pick out. She's like, "Which books can you live without?" And I was like, "Okay, Brandon Sanderson stays, Tolkien stays, a bunch of these other ones stay. These ones can go." So
awesome. All right. So speaking of Tolkien and Brandon Sanderson, I'm curious. Who would you say is your biggest creative influences? Now, it doesn't have to be an author. It could be a filmmaker. It could be even music. But anything that helped shape your tone and your style as a writer?
I think I pull from a lot of different authors and movies and video games. Brandon Sanderson is probably at the forefront. After I read Mistborn in 2014 was really when I was like, okay, I'm decided on this author path. This is what I'm going to do. Nothing is going to stop me. I'm going to try this course until I'm dead or until I succeed. Tolkien is another big influence. If you've ever heard of Glenn Cook, he writes The Black Company. He is a major influence on me as well. I love the Black Company series. And then a lot of video games as well. Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy. I don't know if you've ever heard of Tetsuya Nomura. I was not a fan of Kingdom Hearts 3, but everything before that was fantastic. From Software's games, Dark Souls, Elden Ring. And there's a lot of smaller RPGs, Nintendo, Zelda, Fire Emblem. All of those kind of like come together and are pretty big influences for me.
So how can we go through and see those influences? Is it the writing styles? Is it their tones? Or is it a certain kind of development? I'm curious where we see kind of some of those influences in your writing.
In There Will Be Thousands, I was actually trying to replicate Glenn Cook's writing style. I describe it as very brutal and blunt, yet it has kind of a poetry to it. And that's what I was trying to do with There Will Be Thousands, is just have very little description, have a lot of emotional gut punch. But I also wanted it to somewhat mirror Brandon Sanderson's Emperor's Soul, if you've read that one, because Emperor's Soul is a shorter novel. I don't think there's a single sentence that is wasted in that book. It's so economical. I think it's probably his best work, in my opinion. But those are the two that were major influences for There Will Be Thousands, and I think Elden Ring as well. Kind of the dismal atmosphere, I would say morose or somber atmosphere of Elden Ring is kind of what I was going for as well.
I will have to concur that Emperor's Soul is arguably one of the best Sanderson books that he has across the board. I haven't read them all of Sanderson's work, so I can only say from the ones I've read, but Emperor's Soul and probably one of the first three Mistborn books. I don't know which one. Depends on my mood, which one I like more. But the first trilogy, I love the first trilogy. It's what we got into Sanderson originally.
Yeah.
We have a few other people that jumped on, but before I say hey to everyone, I don't have your book on your shelf. It's on my Kindle. But if you want to send me your book, or I can buy your book eventually, I'll put it honestly right there, right there. I'll put it right there.
Awesome.
All right, I got
Yeah.
you, Miguel. I'll add you right there.
I actually have a copy right here. The print version is completely done, so I can actually send you this one if you would like. So.
Awesome. I would put it right there also. I'll put it right there behind me. It'd be great. Perfect spot. And then we have someone, a long friend. Hello, Ted. I'm so happy to see you. I get too excited when my buddy Ted jumps on. And then another great guy, Lucas. I love seeing you on here, man, but I need you to go back writing. I need to get your writing on. I need your book.
Thank you guys for joining. It's good to see you all.
Yeah. All right. So I want to know a little bit about There Will Be Thousands. What was that original spark for that book? Did the story begin with a character? Was it an image, or was it a question? What got you into going, hey, this is the story I want to go through and write?
So it had to actually do with U.S. politics. So in U.S. politics right now, there's a huge kind of there's a lot of focus on slavery, and slavery being the ultimate evil, and alongside kind of Nazism. And I was kind of looking at that, and I was like, could you take somebody who's committed this ultimate evil, contemporarily speaking, of slavery, and could you redeem them? And I was like, that would be a really good story if I could pull it off. And so I kind of let the idea sit for a few months, because I was like, I don't know if I actually have the skill to write this. And then one day I sat down, and it was just after I'd finished editing my previous book called When the King Was Born. I was like, I think I have enough skill to write this book now. And that was one of the main inspirations. As I was writing, if you've ever heard of the song Amazing Grace, it's a Christian hymn. Mm-hmm. That was written by a slaver who crashed. I think his ship crashed, and his life, he survived. And because he survived, he kind of credited God and wrote that hymn. And I think there was one other inspiration. For the life of me, I can't remember what it was, because I've been asked this question, but it was some film or another where somebody was a servant. And I was like, I wonder what would happen if this character had been a slave before they became a servant. And so it was those kind of three inspirations that I was like, I bet you I can turn this into a fantasy book that kind of works.
That's awesome. So you had the spark, you had the idea. Did you go through and plan out the book? Did you go through and outline what you wanted to do? Or did you go, hey, I have a glimpse of an idea. Let me just start writing and seeing where this story goes?
So Brandon Sanderson, George R.R. Martin, a lot of authors talk about the difference between being a gardener or an architect, or a discovery writer and architect. And architects are where they go out and they plan everything. Discovery writers are where they kind of fly by the seat of their pants. I feel like I'm a little bit of both. So I knew how I wanted the story to begin. I knew how I wanted the story to end. And then there were a few parts in the middle that I knew I wanted to hit. Everything else was kind of as I went along and discovered the characters. One thing that I really believe makes a good book is internal consistency. If your characters are consistent, if the magic and rules that you've set up are consistent, you've done 75% of the work into making this enjoyable for the reader. Because if they can understand what's going on, because they can say, because this character is this way, I know how they're going to act, then it provides that enjoyment for them. And so I wrote the book in 3 months. A lot of it was a lot of it I discovered. Monger, actually, who's one of the big pivotal characters, was not initially meant to have the role that he plays later on in the book. He was supposed to be this gruff captain that actually absolutely hated Sitter for the majority of the book. And then I wrote his first chapter, and I would be like, it would be really cool if he actually had some connection to Sitter here. And so from that point on, I just wrote it. I wrote Monger as if he had this background connection, and then later went back and edited that first chapter where he appears.
Awesome. So it looks like you convinced Ted already. Ted's going to go through and read it. Ted, it's fantastic, man. I know the type of books you like. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. So that's awesome. He's going to go through and check it out. And then there is a question here. Have you ever thought about going to FanX to show your book there and get more people to buy it?
Yeah, it's a bit pricey to buy a booth at FanX, but I would like to attend FanX next year. I'd also like to attend Dragonsteel Con, Dragon Con, and there's one other one. I have a list of all of them. There's so many that I can't keep track. But I do have a booth at StoryCon. It's the old teen author boot camp. So I will be selling There Will Be Thousands, Everfont, When the King Was Born, and also The Land of the Ill-Imagined there.
Awesome. Where's StoryCon at?
It is in Salt Lake, up in the Salt Palace, I believe, is the venue.
Okay. So next year, I'm trying to convince everyone to go to, I think it's Dragon Con in Atlanta, Georgia. So you should go. I'm trying to get everyone to go. I think if we can just get all the indie authors and all the indie booktube people just to all like take over Dragon Con, I think that would be amazing. So putting it out into the universe. So if you want to add that to your list as well, 2026, not this year, because I can't afford to go this year, but next year. I'm going to save up and I'm going to go.
I definitely want to go. I'll see if we can work it into the budget with my wife. I did see you. I think you respond to JCM Byrne, the author of Wistful Ascending, and then I think you talked to Shami Stovall as well. But that may have been somebody else.
Yeah, I've been talking behind the scenes with people of like, we should do this. We should hype this up. And then Joe posted that. And I'm like, Joe's in my mind. So I was like, yes, Joe, make this happen, man. Let's make this happen. Awesome. So before we get a little bit into your writing process and talk a little bit more about There Will Be Thousands, non-spoiler, Ted, I'm not going to spoil anything. Are there any surprising hobbies or obsessions that sneak into your writing that readers may not catch on the first go around within your stories?
I don't know about surprising hobbies. I have a lot of bad habits that I have to go through and edit. So I use but and yet and however like an insane amount. And I hope that now that I've said that, you don't notice them if you read the book again. But I have to go back and I probably remove 75% of all of those. I really try hard not to put myself into any of my characters. But occasionally I bleed through. There is a line at the end of There Will Be Thousands that Sitter says that is 100% me. I wish I had reworded it a little bit. But that's about it. There is a character. He doesn't appear in There Will Be Thousands. He's kind of like Wit in Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere books. He shows up quite frequently in my other books. So Everfont and When the King Was Born take place in the same universe as There Will Be Thousands, just on a different planet. I don't plan on ever interacting like series to series. I've mainly done that just so that I can have a consistent magic system across the different books. So if you've read one book, you understand the magic system. You could pick up another one without having to put too much thought into it. Awesome.
So you mentioned that you write every day. So I'm curious what does a typical writing day look like? Because you have a full-time job, you have a full house of kids. Like, when do you have time to go through and sit down and write?
So my job is really nice. I'm a warehouse manager and I'm a one-man department. As long as I get all of my work done, if I get in and kind of knuckle down during the morning, I can maybe have 30 minutes at the end of my shift to write. So that's my goal. This week, I have not been able to do that because of various things at my work. But when that happens, when I come home from the evening and we get the kids to bed, my wife and I have watched an episode of whatever TV we're watching, then I will have about an hour to write. And my daily goal is between 1,000 to 2,000 words. I absolutely have to hit somewhere in that range. Otherwise, I'm not going to bed. And I can do that in probably about 20 to 30 minutes. Now, when I first started, I couldn't hit that at all. It would take me like 2-3 hours to write 1,000 words. But now I can get into the zone fairly quickly.
Wow, that's impressive. Do Do you sit in silence when you go through and write, or are you the kind of person that's like, hey, I'm about to write this amazing action scene. Let me put on some jammers. Like, do you go through and listen to music to get kind of into the groove? Because that 20-30 minutes to write 2,000 words, it's pretty impressive.
Oh, thank you. I actually listen to rain. So I just put a little bit of rain and campfire on in the background, and then I will write to that. And I can write. My limit right now is about 2 hours total. So I have to write fast if I want to get a lot of stuff done, because after that, unfortunately, like not trying to use it as an excuse, but I do have ADHD. And so at a certain point, I'm like, okay, I've got to move. I've got to move. I've got to stand up. So.
That's so funny. All right. So you write every day between 30 minutes to 2 hours. When you're going through and writing, do you write straightforward, like, okay, I'm writing this story, let me write in cadence with the story, or do you go through and go, I'm really feeling this section of the book, so you're jumping around a little bit? I'm really curious for how your writing style is.
Linear for me. I have tried to write out of order, but one of the problems that I have is that once I write the scene that I'm really excited for in a book, that I'm like, this is going to be the scene of the book, I lose all motivation to get to there. And so I'll be like, I've already written that scene. I don't have to push forward to get to this part of the book. So then I find myself becoming lazy. So a lot of authors have ways to reward themselves for writing or doing good. Mine is that I get to reward myself at the end. When I finally get to that scene, I'm like, okay, now I can write this scene and kind of let loose with everything that I've wanted to do.
Awesome. So what's been the most challenging part about bringing your stories to life? And what's been the most rewarding as well?
I naturally have a massive ego, and learning that I wasn't a good writer to begin with was really hard, because growing up, I was very talented at reading and I had a natural aptitude for writing. And so I was like, oh, this is going to be easy for me. Mm-hmm. And then I wrote 3 books before I published my first book, Everfont. And none of them were great. The first book that I wrote was 200,000 words of, I call it dog water. It was so bad. And I sent it to a bunch of people, including my wife and my mother, both of whom were, are you really sure you want to be a writer? You could always, you're young, you could pivot. And that was really hard for me because I thought that I was very skilled. And even now, when somebody looks at something that I've written and is like, no, this is really bad, I didn't like it, it's kind of hard to step outside yourself and be like, there's some truth there. I recently wrote a chapter for a book for my writing group, and I sent it to them, and the feedback was like, this is pretty bad, like, we don't think you have a shot. And at first I was like, this is pretty good, like, but then I took a step back out of myself and was like, no, these guys are right. And so I think that that's one of the hardest things for me, is realizing that, one, like, everything I write is not going to be good. That's just the nature of writing. But 2, being willing to, like, accept criticism from others can sometimes be hard. One of the most rewarding things on the opposite spectrum is when you do get criticism and you're like, that is really awesome, and you 100% agree with it, and you're like, yeah, I think that's awesome to fix. When you get to the pinnacle of the story, everything comes together. That's one of my favorites. At the end of There Will Be Thousands, there's this monologue by the bad guy, and there's kind of like this back and forth between the two, the main character and him. And that was one of my favorite scenes to write, because it's like, this is where it all comes together. This is where the audience finally gets to understand everything that's going on. And that's really rewarding when you get to those parts in your story.
It's awesome. It's awesome. All right. So let's jump into There Be Thousands. Again, this is going to be non-spoiler. I'm going to do my best. If you feel like you can't answer the question because it's getting too spoilery, we'll jump to some of the other ones, because I have a lot of thoughts that I want to run by you. The protagonist, Sitter, starts as a despicable person. I think we can agree. Not a great person to be around. What drew you to telling a story of someone so morally compromised? I know we talked a little bit at the beginning on the thought for the story, but having it from their perspective. I'm really curious on why you chose Sitter as your person.
I really love redemption stories. Avatar: The Last Airbender is my go-to as an example. Zuko in that cartoon is a fantastic example of how to do a redemption story. But with redemption stories, you can't have them be in fact impactful and powerful unless the person is abhorrent at the beginning of the plot. And so Sitter starting out abhorrent is meant to kind of be a shock for the reader. And in the overall scheme of There Will Be Thousands, Sitter really isn't the hero of the story. He's the protagonist, but he's not the hero. Monger would be considered the hero because he's got all of the virtuous qualities. He's got he's like the, I'm going to do what is right no matter what. And Sitter is the background character in kind of Monger's story that does all of the dirty stuff that Monger can't do, essentially. Okay. I hope that's not too spoilery.
No, that's good. No, that's good. So from my perspective, there's a big theme of empathy being forced on to Sitter with the really having to walk in other shoes. Was there a particular scene that you felt captured that theme of empathy most powerfully in your story?
I feel probably one of my other favorite scenes to write. I really like this book, but there's a moment where Sitter is sent out to collect some flowers for his master. And on his way back, he gets caught in a rainstorm and his shoes break and he's kind of in a bad situation. He sets up his tent, he's shivering inside, and one of the other slaves comes to see him. And she and he have a conversation about some of the stuff that was done to her when she was a slave. And he kind of realizes, like, she uses this phrase. She's like, I don't blame you because it's in your nature, and you're an animal. And I don't blame any of the bandits because they're animals. And internally, he is reflecting. He's like, no, I had a choice. I didn't have to do these things. And I think that one really captures maybe not empathy exactly, but the reality that he's coming to realize, like, I could have done better. And that's kind of in the middle of when he is a slave, and you slowly see him start to realize, or not realize, but you slowly start to see him open up to the possibility that he does care about these people, even though they're slaves, even though that he ruined their lives. Like, he does have compassion for them and he does love them in his own way.
Okay. Awesome. I do have another follow-up question, but we said his name 3 times, so he showed up. The great Joe Byrne. How's it going, Joe? I appreciate you being here, man. Literally, we were talking about you earlier. I guess we said his name 3 times, and he just popped up. So I appreciate you showing up.
Good to see you.
So you balance grimdark or grim. I won't say grimdark, but grim violence with a thread of hope within this story. How did you decide where to push into that grimdark area and when to go through and pull back and being more on the hope side within There Be Thousands?
I really like grimdark stories when they have hopeful endings. And that was kind of my purpose, is like, this is going to be a really dark story with dark material that has a hopeful ending. And so the book starts out really dark to kind of paint a picture of, this is an awful situation. Mm-hmm. These are terrible bandits. They're terrible people. And you should not feel bad for these people. But then as soon as Sitter gets into, becomes a slave himself, there's a few moments of darkness later on. There's a part where they get in trouble, the slaves, because one of the slaves actually kills a character. Trying not to spoil anything, but essentially they're like, how do we get out of this situation? And Sitter's like, we blame somebody else. We put the blame on somebody else. And they're like kind of appalled by that. They're like, you're really going to blame somebody else for this murder? And he's like, I've killed and I have enslaved all of you. Did you forget who I am? And so I think that the moments where it becomes grimdark is when it's necessary for Sitter to exercise those parts of himself that are bad for the greater good. There's a line he uses around there where he's like, he says, vice will do what virtue could not in this instance, or something similar. And so I think that when those moments of darkness pop up, it's because Sitter has to do something that is unsavory, but that has to be done. And it balances like, oh, he's kind of growing with the reminder that, yeah, he was a bandit. He lived this way for quite a long time.
So when you originally came up with the idea of this, did you always plan for it to be on the shorter side? Because I feel like this could have been a long book. So I'm curious, did you consciously go through and think at the beginning, like, hey, I need this to be tight-knit, gut-punching from the beginning, or did it start as a full novel and you're like, let me condense it down?
It was always planned to be short. I really wanted to mimic the kind of a brevity that Sanderson has with Emperor's Soul. It was actually shorter. So there's a chapter called Interlude in the book where you are taken to Monger's perspective. That was initially not in the first draft. There's also a prologue from Vagar's perspective as well that I actually ended up cutting from the book. I just don't feel like it fit very well. And also the gut punch of that first line is just so good. I didn't want to ruin that. And so I intended this book to actually be about 5,000 words shorter, but ended up extending it because I felt like I had a little bit more to tell. That is the main criticism that I've received from people, is they're like, this is really short. You could have extended this. And I responded as like, yeah, I could have, but I'm really glad I didn't.
See you, man. Appreciate you stopping by. No, I think I felt like it could have been so much more, but the story was so well done and it had such great punchy moments. There was so much amazing arcs within this story. I'm curious, when you were going through it and doing the writing and drafting and getting your feet wet with Sitter, was there anything that surprised you during that process, or did the story shift at all within any direction, specifically within Sitter? I know you mentioned Monger earlier, but I'm curious if anything changed specifically with Sitter.
There's a few scenes that I ended up changing. Sitter was in the first draft a lot more violent than he was in the final draft, is where he was kind of more abusive to those around him initially. The scene where he wipes the memories from Sundu's mother and sister was not initially there. He wasn't supposed to care about him. And I initially wrote him to be this hardened character that kind of opens up over time. And after I finished the first draft and went back and read it, I realized I was like, no, like there has to be some redeeming quality that the audience can resonate with early on. Because if there's not, then there's no reason to root for Sitter. And so I ended up making him still hardened over the course of the book, but more gentle than I otherwise would have. And there's that line later on where I can't remember which character it was that tells him this. I think it's Catelyn, but she says, when people are kidnapped, they hope they're kidnapped by you, because of all the slavers out there, they know that you're not going to beat them to death or abuse them. And that's kind of surprising to him. But that also wasn't initially in the first draft of Sitter's character. So I like that gentleness that he has in the final draft.
So I'm going to be honest with you. I went through and checked out multiple reviews after I finished this book, because I was curious if people were feeling the same thing I was feeling when I went through and finished your book. And it was pretty consistent across the board that people were highlighting the book's emotional weight and moral questions. Were you expecting that to resonate so well and strongly with the readers?
I was unsure that it would. It was what I wanted to have hit with the audience, but I wasn't sure. I really wasn't sure how it would land. One of the big fears that I have was that people would open up this book, read the first page, read the first chapter, and be like, this is really dark. I'm going to set this down and not read it anymore. And I actually have had one or two people be like, I can't stomach this. One of them being my sister, or my wife's sister. she told me, she's like, I have kids. I see them kind of in these scenes. I can't read this. And I go, that's understandable. But the moment that I knew that this book was actually going to do what I wanted it to do is there's a book reviewer by the name of Shakib Crowdhurry. And there was a controversy a while back on Twitter. I don't know if you remember this, but one author had responded to a 3-star review, and it blew up. And I found him through that because he read it. He gave it 2 stars. And I was like, I need somebody who has an unbiased opinion to read this book and tell me what they think, because I've had people around me tell me, I've had my writing group read this. This is a guy who gave a brutally honest review of this other author's book. He will probably do the same for mine. So I was expecting 4 stars from him. He came out of the gate and he's like, 5 stars. This is amazing. This is one of the best indie books I've read in a while. And I was blown away. But that was the moment where I was like, this book is something special. Like, I felt it special before now, but now I know that it's special, and that the emotional beats that I have planned in this book are going to resonate with audiences.
So, Ted, I see a question. We're going to jump to it in just a second, but how important was it to you that the book carried that moral message and not just a shock value type of book? Was it like, what?
It was, I would say it's tantamount. I don't like writing shock value just for shock value. There has to be a reason for it. So every time something that is shocking, such as Catelyn talking about how she was treated by the Wanderlaks, Sitter kind of like recounting how many people he's killed. It's all shocking stuff, but it's all meant to play into the eventual redemption that Sitter has. And also that pinnacle scene with Sundu at the end and her confrontation with him, which is very brief, but I feel was very poignant. And it's all building to that moment. I personally feel that if you're going to dip into the dark side of things, if you're going to dip into the horror, there has to be an equal amount of light to give audiences hope at the end of the day.
Awesome. All right, so let's jump into Ted's question. Ted is searching your book up again. When Ted said he's going to read something, man's going to read something. So he stated on Amazon, it has your reading ages from 16 to 18. Did you go through and decide that, or was that something for Amazon? If it was you, was it challenging doing Grimdark for high school age group?
I think there's an option on Amazon on KDP that lets you decide what age group it's for, and I think I put 16. The thing that I kind of feel about that age rating is that there's some pretty graphic violence in this book, but nothing that you wouldn't see in, say, a Marvel movie. Or maybe, and I mean Gladiator, which is rated R, but I feel like now it would be rated PG-13, to be honest. But any allusions to sex or rape are implied. They aren't shown. And that was kind of the trick that I used to write it for high schoolers. For example, like there's a scene very early on in the book where one of the bandits, they've just killed this family and brought back the women. They're going to throw them in the pens, and they're kind of talking about what they're going to do to them. And there's an allusion to one of the bandits taking and having his way with the mother, but nothing is ever shown. It's always implied, which is kind of how I get around kind of like that age gap. And I don't like writing those scenes, so I feel like implying them is more than enough for the audience to understand what's going on.
Perfect. Appreciate that question, Ted. It was a really good question. Wish I thought of it. Good job, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so we are at that point of the conversation of what I like to call the lightning round. Anyone that's not familiar, I'm going to be going through and asking Alex about 9 very quick questions. He's not supposed to think, just right off the top of his head, and then we'll jump into talking about future works and future plans for his other books. So you ready? You ready to jump in?
I'm ready.
All right. So paperback or hardback? What do you prefer?
Hardback, 100%.
All right. Which fantasy world would you least want to be enslaved in?
Warhammer 40K. I don't know if that counts as fantasy, but that is such a brutal fantasy. I would never want to be reincarnated in that world ever. Awesome. Even if I was a hero there, I'd be like, nope, I'm steering clear. So.
One author, living or deceased, you would like to grab a drink with.
Tolkien, Kenneth Opel, Brandon Sanderson, those three. So.
Do you prefer plot twist or slow burns?
Both. The slow burn has to lead up to a really good plot twist.
Last book that blew your mind?
Red Rising. I read that I want to say like a month ago, 2 months ago, and I finished it in one day. I was like so hooked. It was so good.
Just book one?
I read book two. I have not read book three. So I read book two, and it was still good, but it didn't hit quite as hard as book one. I feel like that's often the case. And I hope if Pierce Brown, I think that's the author, if he ever sees that he doesn't hate me for saying that. But I'm excited to read book three.
One of my favorite series. It gets more intense. It gets darker and darker each book. You'll love it. All right. Favorite fantasy book that everyone sleeps on?
Ooh, this one is hard. There Will Be Thousands. No, but gosh dang, that's a hard one. I would say Black Company, Glenn Cook, but I feel like that one's pretty well renowned for the people who know it. I would have to look at my bookshelf for that one. Maybe Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, because everybody is so invested in Mistborn and Stormlight, and those are great books. But I feel like Warbreaker is one of his best novels. For a mainstream answer, I guess that would be my answer.
No good. I'll take the Glenn Cook one. I've not read his books either. It's been on my list forever, so we're good with both of those. All right. I want one word, just one, that's going to go through and describe There Will Be Thousands.
Redemption.
All right. Favorite trope?
I love friends that become lovers by the end of the series. And I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent. I hate when authors introduce an awesome couple. They are romantic or whatever, and then they break up for asinine reasons. And then they get with like the second love interest. My wife forced me to watch Vampire Diaries, and this is why I hate this trope. Is this happens in the Vampire Diaries, and it happens in a ton of other books. I hate it. If Rowling in the Harry Potter series had Harry get with Hermione and then break up just so he could be with Ginny, I would have hated that too. I hate when you don't keep the main character with the main love interest throughout the whole series. That unless they die, then I guess that's an exception.
So is that your least favorite trope, or do you have one?
That is my least favorite trope, when you have characters break up once or multiple times.
No. All right.
But I love the friends to lovers. Sorry, that's my favorite.
What's one book you wish you wrote?
I wish that I wrote The Giver by, I think, Louis Lowry.
Wow, okay. That's the first one. All right, last one. And this one, you can take a minute if you want to think about it.
Okay.
If There Will Be Thousands could have a theme song, what would it be?
This is going to be a bit of a... It's actually two songs. So when I was editing There Will Be Thousands, these are actually the two songs that I wrote. One of them is from Princess Mononoke, the Studio Ghibli film. And it's, hold on, I've got to look up the title of it. But it's a song that plays after Ashitaka wakes up and is talking to the wolf god. And it has, gosh dang, I can't remember what it's called. But the second one is The Night Does Not Belong to God by Sleep Token.
Okay. I don't know that one.
It's pretty good. It's a bit slower. I feel like melancholic is the correct way to describe it. Both of those songs are very melancholic, and that would be my second word choice for if I were to describe There Will Be Thousands in a word.
Awesome. I need to go through and check that out. Yeah, I keep hearing great things about Sleep Token. To be very transparent, I have not listened to them at all. I just haven't done it yet. So it's on the list, but I think the fact that everyone talks about them makes me not want to listen to them as much, just because I guess, that rebellious, I guess, or just stubborn. I guess the better word's stubborn. So we'll see. I need to sit down and just have a long car ride and just listen to their best stuff, and I'll probably be obsessed with them.
Yeah. Well, and I'm kind of weird because I've only listened to 2 songs by them. I'm eclectic where I'll hear a song on YouTube and like on a short or something, and then I will hunt it down. I'm like, oh, I really like this song. So I have an amalgamation of like singles from hundreds of different bands, and they're like, oh, do you like? I tell somebody, I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard of that band. I like this song. And they're like, oh, isn't the rest of their stuff good? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to listen to the rest of their stuff because I really like them right now, and I don't want that to be ruined. So
I get that. I 100% get that. It's so funny. That's so funny. So There Will Be Thousands. You're going through and working on an audiobook right now. How's that going?
It's going good. Because of the unique nature of some of the plot beats in this book, I'm actually having a female narrator and a male narrator. And to get this essentially for the lowest cost that I could, I had the female narrator who has narrated Everfont and When the King Was Born. I'm having her do all of the female lines, and then I am the one that is splicing those in. And then the male narrator is just narrating the whole book. He has already sent me the files. I'm waiting on a few from her. There are a few kinks in that, but I've mostly edited the audiobook. I'm hoping to have it out by the end of August, but we will see. It's very tedious. It's not hard to edit audiobooks. It's just tedious.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like you can knock it out. And you've been posting a lot of chapters on X to kind of give people a little bit of a sneak peek. So if anyone's interested, follow Alex on X. He'll go through and give you all a sneak peek of what the audiobook sounds like. And It sounds great. It sounds great so far. Can't wait to listen to it. I think it'll be fun. So before we talk about your other work that I'm really excited to go through and yap with you a little bit about, but I'm curious for you at this point in your writing career, what does success look like for you?
Success for me, I feel, is kind of the horizon. I don't know if I'll ever get there. Hans Zimmer talks about he's the composer for a ton of different movies. For those who aren't aware, he did Christopher Nolan's Batman series. He did Disney's Mulan, Kung Fu Panda, Inception, Interstellar. He's pretty much all over the industry. I would call him a modern day Beethoven. But he says he's always looking for his greatest masterpiece. And that's how I feel, is that I won't know if I've been successful until I'm on my deathbed. But for right now, I would love to make money like full-time as a full-time author. I would love to be able to quit my day job, as nice as they are to me, where I currently work. As much as I love that job, I would love to be able to write full-time. And so that's the current standard of success that I'm going for.
Awesome. So Ted has another question. Do you have a website?
I have a Substack. I do not have a website. So my Substack is, I think, the Starwald. It's the same as my Twitter handle, .substack.com. I do have the starwald.com as a domain name, but I have not done anything with that. Eventually I will. But for now, it's just the Substack, just my ex.
You need to get to it. Block some time. Get the website created. It's going to help out. So I want to switch gears just for a minute. I know personally, you have been working on another fantastic story, Land of the Ill-Imagined, and I was honored to read it early, and I really do appreciate it because I really love this story. It had so much depth, so much thought-provoking aspects of the story. Do you mind just giving us just a little bit about what that story is about and when everyone can expect to go through and read it?
For sure. So this story is about thoughts that you may have, ideas for stories, inventions. that you have not shared with anybody, that you kind of keep hidden. And those thoughts end up in a place called the Land of the Ill-Imagined, and they have thoughts of their own. And so they kind of congregate in this city. They know that they're not real. They know that they're just ideas, but they're trying to eke out a living anyways. The main character, Pyrrhus, shows up. And when Thoughtseize first arrive, their memories are really fuzzy because sometimes they're fully formed. Sometimes the ideas are still kind of milling about in their creators' heads. And so Pyrrhus doesn't really know who he is. He's told that he's just an idea. And he joins the city's police force, which are called censors. And he hunts down villain Thoughtseize. And over the course of the story, you realize that there's this big event happening that Pyrrhus is unaware of that is going to change his life forever.
So it is fantastic. It is fantastic. I loved it. I'm only going to ask one question about this book. How did you come up with this idea? What inspired this type of story to come up? Because it is like nothing I've read before. It was such a really original idea for this story.
Thank you. I think I had, so Grinty and Bouncer, who are two of the main characters in the story, were the first characters I ever thought of. And I actually had the idea for them, I want to say when I was about 10 or 11 as a kid. And it was this shotgun wielding kind of wild girl and this bunny rabbit decked out in knight armor with this giant axe twice his size. And I was like, how do I write these two characters in a way that like it's realistic and it doesn't immediately take people out of the story? And I thought about that for 10 years. And one day it hit me that it's like, okay, I have to put them in like a zeitgeist world, almost like collective consciousness. How do I do that in a way that's different? Because tons of people have written, I feel like, worlds or fictional stories or fantasies where it's like, oh, it's just about your thoughts. It's a world of thought, you know? Mm-hmm. Never Ending Story is a really good one. There's a studio called Studio Ponac. They are the split off of Studio Ghibli. I think they do anime movies. They came out with a movie about imagination recently. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. It's just all imaginary. It was like, how do I make this different? And it's like everybody has secret desires and hidden like ideas. If they congregate, like that would be a pretty good idea for a story. And when I had that thought, I was like, that's it. And then I started building it and kind of building the mechanics of this world. And I was like, well, how does it make sense? Because sometimes the things that the Thoughtseize do may have an effect on their creator. But the creators definitely have an effect on their thoughts. And so there's a lot of stuff that I have planned for this series that you don't see in book one. For example, there's a scene early on in book two where they go to the equivalent of the movie theater in this land, and they have categories, and the two that they visit are Kill Your Boss and Shower Thoughts. And if you've ever had like that conversation in the shower, you know, you don't talk to anybody about it. Those shower conversations show up in the Land of the Ill-Imagined as they're playing out in your head. If you've ever thought about killing your boss, not that I have, but that scene will show up in the movie theater for the characters in the Land of the Ill-Imagined. So there's a lot of like really cool stuff you can do with this world that I'm very excited to show people in sequels. And in this world, in this first book, there's a lot of cool stuff as well. Mm-hmm. The world is constantly changing because it's a world of thought. Like, not everything is set in stone, but the Thoughtseize know how to navigate it. Everybody kind of brings their own rules. That's pointed out early on in the book. Is one of the characters is like, I met a guy who just didn't have to obey the laws of gravity because he was thought up that way. And I don't know how it works. Maybe his creator doesn't know how it works, but that's how he functions here. And so there's a lot of cool stuff that I think happens in this book that people will enjoy.
It is a lot of fun and fantastic, and made me second guess some of the characters I've thought about as a child up to this point. I'm like, what kind of chaos are these monsters going through? So it was awesome. It had me thinking a lot. It was a lot of fun. There's a few scenes, and I mentioned this on weekly recap, so I don't feel like I'm spoiling too much with it. But you have these characters also who have memories of their family members who they know don't exist, but they have the memories with them. So those kind of scenes was really messing with my head. So very well done. I had so much fun with that book. When is that book expected to come out?
That is coming out October 14th of this year. I am trying to get to 100 reviews for that on Goodreads before the release date. So if anybody who is listening to this right now is interested in an art copy for that, you're more than welcome to message me on X. I'm on Instagram as well. I am more than happy to send you an art copy for this. I do stipulate that I'm going to follow up with you in about a month and see where you're at. And just be like, hey, if you haven't read this, could you maybe pick it up again?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So you have Land of the Unimagined. You are writing the second book now. You also mentioned at the beginning you're writing a romance book that should be coming out in the next 2 to 3 years. Are there any other kind of stories you're going through and working on that you're willing to go through and share?
Yeah, I've got a few. So the romance one is called If Only Love Could Do the Dishes, and it's not a fantasy. It's a contemporary romance. I think you can kind of extrapolate what that's about from the title. The other one that I'm working on right now is a submission for the new publishing company Arc Press. It's their 2076 America imprint, and my pitch for this is that George Washington, George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, and Andrew Jackson are brought from the past to the future to fight in the Second Civil War of America in 2076. So I'm very excited for that one. I have finished writing the sequel to Land of the Unimagined. I'm currently in editing, and then I'm writing the sequel to There Will Be Thousands, which for me is a bit of a daunting task because of how well There Will Be Thousands is received. But I'm happy to give a pitch for that. The pitch for that one is it is a member of the Fielian Guards, the Fielian Elite Guards, who is tasked with hunting down the Wanderlack bandits who are now freeing slaves around Fiel. And it's kind of the opposite where Sitter, it's the main character Arliger is the opposite of Sitter, where Sitter starts out as this awful, terrible human person. Arliger is supposed to be the paragon of society, but if you've ever read Wheel of Time, he's like Galad in Wheel of Time, where he keeps the rules. He does heinous things in the name of justice. And it's his slow unraveling of maybe these things that I've done in the name of justice are not actually justice at all. And so it's a kind of an opposite story of redemption where Sitter is, can you be redeemed from awful things? Arliger's is, can you be redeemed from good intentions? Can you be redeemed from following the law, essentially?
Awesome. Well, I feel like that's a perfect place to stop. Alex, that was fantastic. I am super hyped that you're on. I really appreciate it. How can people go through and support you? How can people go through and connect with you? I know we spoke about it at the beginning, but for those that are just jumping on, how can people support your work and get in contact with you?
Awesome. Right now, if you pre-order Land of the Unimagined, that's a wonderful way to support me, or There Will Be Thousands. The audiobook is coming out as well. I'm happy to chat with anybody on Twitter. I hate calling it X, but that's what it is. But my handle there is called The Starwald. I'm also on Instagram, and then I've started up a TikTok channel. I hate TikTok, but it's kind of a necessary evil for advertising. And if you want an arc for Land of the Unimagined, if you can leave a review for that, that would be wonderful as well.
Perfect. I will make sure all your information is going to be down in the description below. I appreciate everyone in the chat. Alex, I really appreciate, again, you jumping on. And I highly recommend, it is on Kindle Unlimited. Check out There Be Thousands. Reach out to Alex to get an art copy of The Land of the Unimagined. I promise you, you're all going to go through and enjoy both of them. They are both fantastic. So thank you again, everyone. And I appreciate it. Have a fantastic evening. And until next time, everyone stay overbooked. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you to everybody here.